The sound of my husband's laughter coming from behind hotel room door 412 made my stomach twist into knots that would never fully untangle. I stood in that carpeted hallway, my hand trembling as I held my phone, the receipt I'd found in Brandon's jacket pocket that morning now making terrible sense. Riverside Hotel. Room 412. 3 p.m. check-in. I told myself there had to be an explanation, something innocent, maybe a client meeting. But client meetings didn't happen in hotel rooms, and they certainly didn't involve the kind of breathless giggling I could hear seeping through the crack in the door. I should have knocked. I should have burst in there and demanded answers. Instead, I found myself frozen, watching through the 2-inch gap where the door hadn't quite closed all the way. The afternoon sunlight poured through the hotel room window, illuminating everything in cruel, perfect detail. My husband of 8 years sat on the edge of that king-sized bed, his tie loosened, his jacket tossed carelessly on a chair. And there she was, a woman with long dark hair wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, running her fingers through his hair like she had every right to touch him. "I missed you," Brandon said, and those 3 words felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. "It's only been 2 days, the woman replied, her voice light and teasing. "You're so dramatic." They kissed, and I had to press my hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. 7 years of marriage, of believing we were happy, of thinking I knew the man I'd pledged my life to, and here he was, kissing another woman in a hotel room on a Tuesday afternoon while I'd taken a half day off work to surprise him with dinner. The surprise was definitely mine. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and started taking photos. The angle wasn't perfect, but I could clearly see Brandon's face, see his hands on her waist, see the way he looked at her like she was the center of his universe. Like he used to look at me back when we were first dating, before life became routine and comfortable and apparently boring enough for him to seek excitement elsewhere. "What time do you have to leave?" the woman asked, pulling away from him slightly. "Not until 6, Brandon said. "Simone thinks I'm in a meeting until 7. Simone. My name in his mouth felt like a betrayal all over again. He'd used me as an alibi for his affair. How many times had he done this? How many late meetings and client dinners and work emergencies had actually been hotel rooms and stolen afternoons with this woman in the red dress? "Good," she purred. "That gives us plenty of time." I'd heard enough. More than enough. My finger kept pressing the camera button, capturing evidence, capturing proof, capturing the end of my marriage in a series of digital images that I knew would haunt me for years to come. But I needed them. Some instinct told me I would need every single photo, every piece of evidence, every documented lie. The woman started unbuttoning Brandon's shirt and I turned away, my stomach churning. I couldn't watch anymore. I walked back down that hotel hallway on legs that felt like they might give out at any moment, past the cheerful paintings of beach scenes on the walls, past the ice machine humming quietly, past an elderly couple who smiled at me like this was a normal day and I was a normal person whose entire world hadn't just imploded. I made it to my car before the tears came. I sat in the parking lot of the Riverside Hotel, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned pale, and I sobbed until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen. 8 years. 8 years of cooking his favorite meals and doing his laundry and supporting his career moves and believing in us, in our future, in the life we were supposed to be building together. All of it had been a lie. Or at least for however long this affair had been going on, it had been a lie. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. "Meeting running late, babe. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you. Love you." The casual cruelty of those 2 words made me want to scream. Instead, I deleted the text and opened my photo gallery, forcing myself to look at the evidence I'd collected. In the bright afternoon light streaming through the hotel window, there was no denying what I'd seen. No way to pretend it was innocent or misunderstood. I needed to think. I needed a plan. Going home and confronting Brandon right now while I was this emotional, this devastated, would be a mistake. He'd see me coming from a mile away, and men like him, men who could lie so smoothly, always had explanations ready. He'd tell me it wasn't what it looked like, that it was a one-time mistake, that he was sorry, that it would never happen again. And the old Simone, the Simone from this morning who still believed in her marriage, might have been tempted to believe him. Might have wanted to believe him badly enough to accept whatever story he spun. But that Simone was gone now, left behind in that hotel hallway outside room 412. The woman sitting in this car looking at photos of her husband's betrayal was someone new. Someone harder. Someone who understood that trust, once shattered this completely, could never be repaired. I wiped my eyes and started the car. I wasn't going home. Not yet. Instead, I drove to Nicole's apartment, my best friend since college, the only person I could trust with this information right now. She answered on the second ring, took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? Nicole asked, guiding me to her couch. I showed her the photos. Watched her face change from confusion to shock to fury as she scrolled through them. Nicole had never particularly liked Brandon, though she'd hidden it well for my sake. She'd always thought he was too smooth, too charming, too concerned with appearances. Now, looking at the evidence of his affair, I realized she'd been right all along. That absolute piece of garbage, Nicole said, her voice tight with anger. Simone, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? The old answer would have been to go home, confront him, demand couples therapy, try to save the marriage. That's what everyone always said you were supposed to do. Fight for your marriage. Work through the hard times. Remember why you fell in love in the first place. But sitting there on Nicole's couch, looking at photos of my husband kissing another woman, I realized I didn't want to fight for something Brandon had already thrown away. I didn't want to work through this. I didn't want to remember falling in love with a man who could betray me this casually, this completely. I wanted revenge. Not the screaming, dramatic kind. Not destroying his clothes or keying his car or posting the photos on social media for everyone to see. That would be satisfying for about 10 minutes, and then I'd just look petty and unstable. No, I wanted the kind of revenge that would hurt him where it actually mattered. I wanted him to feel the same devastation I felt right now. I wanted him to lose something he valued. I need to know who she is, I said quietly, my voice steadier than I expected. Everything about her. Nicole looked at me carefully. You're not going to do anything crazy, right? No, I said, and I meant it. Crazy would be forgiving him. Crazy would be pretending this never happened. What I was planning was simply justice. I'm going to be smart about this. But I need information first. Can you help me? Nicole was a lawyer at a downtown firm, with access to databases and resources I didn't have. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Tell me what you need. I pulled up the clearest photo of the woman in the red dress. I need to know everything about her. Her name, where she works, where she lives. Everything. You're sure about this? Nicole asked. Once you start down this road, there's no going back. I looked at the photo again. My husband's hands on another woman's waist. His lips on hers. The easy intimacy that spoke of multiple encounters, not just one mistake. I'm already past the point of no return, I said. Now I just need to decide what comes next. Nicole squeezed my hand. Okay. Give me 24 hours. I'll find out who she is. I stayed at Nicole's apartment that night, calling Brandon to tell him I wasn't feeling well and was staying with a friend. He sounded concerned, asked if I needed anything, told me to feel better soon. The lies came so easily to him. I wondered how long he'd been practicing. As I lay in Nicole's guest room, staring at the ceiling, I made myself a promise. Brandon would pay for what he'd done. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And when it happened, he wouldn't see it coming. The woman in the red dress wouldn't either. Nicole called me the next morning with information that changed everything. I sat in her kitchen, drinking coffee that tasted like ash in my mouth, while she laid out the details she'd uncovered about my husband's mistress. Her name is Tasha Monroe, Nicole said, sliding a folder across the table. 32 years old, works as a real estate agent for Prestige Properties downtown. She's been with the company for 5 years and has a pretty good sales record. I opened the folder and stared at the photo Nicole had printed. It was a professional headshot, probably from the real estate company's website. Tasha looked polished and confident, her smile bright and professional. She looked nothing like me, which somehow made it worse. I'd always wondered what type of woman Brandon would choose if he strayed, and apparently the answer was someone who represented everything I wasn't. There's more, Nicole said, her voice careful. She's married. My head snapped up. What? Married for 6 years to a man named Derek Monroe. He's an engineer, works for TechCore Solutions. They live in Riverside Heights, that new development near the lake. Nice house, expensive cars, the whole package. The information settled over me like a heavy blanket. Tasha wasn't just my husband's mistress. She was someone else's wife. She had her own marriage, her own life, and she'd decided to blow it all up for stolen afternoons with Brandon in hotel rooms. Does her husband know? I asked. No idea, Nicole said. But from what I could find on social media, they look pretty happy. Or at least they did until about 6 months ago. That's when her posts about Derek started becoming less frequent. 6 months? Had the affair been going on that long? I thought back, trying to remember when Brandon's behavior had changed. When had the late meetings started? When had he begun paying more attention to his appearance, buying new clothes, upgrading his cologne. It had been gradual, so gradual I'd barely noticed. But looking back now with this new information, the signs had been there all along. I want to meet him, I said suddenly. Nicole frowned. Derek? Why? Because he deserves to know, I said. And because if I'm going to do this right, if I'm going to make sure Brandon actually faces consequences, I need an ally. Someone who understands what this feels like. Simone, that's risky. You don't know how he'll react. He might not believe you. He might blame you. He might tell Tasha, and then she'll tell Brandon, and your whole plan falls apart. She was right to be cautious. But something in my gut told me this was the right move. Derek Monroe was a victim in this just like I was. He deserved to know what his wife was doing. And if he was even half as angry as I was, he might be willing to help me make sure both Brandon and Tasha face the full weight of their choices. Find out where he works, I said. I want to know his schedule, his routine. I need to approach this carefully. Nicole sighed, but she nodded. She understood. In her work as a lawyer, she'd seen enough messy divorces and betrayed spouses to know that sometimes the conventional advice to just walk away and move on wasn't enough. Sometimes people needed justice. Sometimes they needed revenge. Over the next week, I became an expert on Derek Monroe's life. Nicole had access to databases most people didn't, and she used them to build me a comprehensive profile. Derek worked long hours at TechCore Solutions, usually arriving at the office by 7 in the morning and leaving around 6 in the evening. He belonged to a gym 3 blocks from his office where he worked out during his lunch hour. He drove a silver Mercedes and had season tickets to the basketball games downtown. He also, according to his social media profiles that I studied obsessively, seemed like a decent man. His posts were infrequent but genuine. Photos of him and Tasha at restaurants and events, always smiling, always looking like the perfect couple. There were pictures of him with his younger sister Rachel at family gatherings. Photos of business achievements and charity events he'd attended. Nothing that suggested he had any idea his wife was spending her afternoons in hotel rooms with other women's husbands. At home, I maintained the facade with Brandon. I cooked dinner, asked about his day, pretended everything was normal. It was harder than I'd expected. Every time he touched me, every time he kissed me goodbye in the morning, every time he told me he loved me, I had to fight the urge to scream at him, to demand answers, to show him the photos and watch his face crumble. But that would be giving in to emotion, and emotion wouldn't get me what I wanted. I needed to be smart. I needed to be patient. So I smiled and nodded and played the role of devoted wife while secretly planning my next move. You're scaring me a little, Nicole admitted one evening when I came over to review more information about Derek. You're so calm about all of this. Are you okay? No, I said honestly. I'm not okay. But falling apart won't help me. Getting angry won't change anything. What will help is making sure Brandon and Tasha actually face consequences for what they've done. And Derek is part of that plan? Derek deserves to know the truth, I said. After that, what he does with the information is up to him. But yes, I'm hoping he'll want justice as much as I do. I found my opportunity 2 weeks after discovering the affair. Nicole discovered that Derek would be attending a business networking event at the Grandview Hotel downtown. The event was open to professionals from various industries, and with Nicole's help, I secured an invitation using my credentials as a senior accountant at Morrison & Associates. I spent an hour getting ready that evening, choosing my outfit carefully. I wore a royal blue dress that Nicole had helped me pick out, something professional but eye-catching. I styled my hair in loose curls and applied makeup with more care than I'd used in months. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The broken, sobbing woman from 2 weeks ago was gone, replaced by someone harder, more determined. Brandon was working late again. Or at least that's what he'd told me. I didn't bother checking whether he was actually at the office or at another hotel with Tasha. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the plan. The networking event was already in full swing when I arrived. The hotel ballroom was filled with people in business attire, holding drinks and making small talk. I spotted Derek almost immediately. He was taller than I'd expected from his photos, probably around 6'2", with an athletic build that suggested he actually used that gym membership. He wore a charcoal gray suit and was talking with a small group of people near the buffet table. I took a deep breath and approached, timing my arrival for when the group was breaking up. Derek was checking his phone when I stepped into his line of sight. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice friendly and professional. "I couldn't help but notice your TechCore Solutions badge. I've heard great things about your company's new software platform." Derek looked up, and I saw his eyes register appreciation before he smiled politely. "Thank you. Are you in tech?" Accounting, I said, extending my hand. Simone Harris. I work for Morrison & Associates. We're always looking for better systems to manage client data, and TechCore keeps coming up in conversations. We shook hands and I felt a strange twist in my stomach. This was the man whose wife was sleeping with my husband. This was the man whose life was about to be destroyed just like mine had been. And he had no idea, standing there smiling at me, making polite conversation about software platforms and data management. Derek Monroe, he said. Senior engineer at TechCore. I'd be happy to tell you about our platform. Are you looking for something specific? We fell into easy conversation about business, about technology, about the challenges of managing large amounts of data efficiently. Derek was intelligent and articulate, clearly passionate about his work. He was also, I noted, wearing a wedding ring that matched the one I'd seen in photos of Tasha. Is your wife here tonight? I asked casually, already knowing the answer. Derek's smile faltered slightly. No, she had a work event. Real estate never sleeps, apparently. There was something in his voice, a hint of frustration or maybe resignation, that made me pay attention. That must be difficult, I said carefully. My husband travels a lot for work too. Sometimes it feels like we're ships passing in the night. Exactly, Derek said, and I saw relief in his eyes at being understood. Tasha's been working so much lately. I barely see her. When I do, she's exhausted or stressed about a deal. I keep telling myself it's just a busy season, but sometimes I wonder. He trailed off and I saw the doubt there just beneath the surface. He already suspected something was wrong. He just didn't know what yet. Wonder what? I prompted gently. Derek shook his head, looking embarrassed. Sorry, I don't usually unload on strangers at networking events. It's been a long week. No judgment here, I said. Sometimes it's easier to talk to strangers. They don't have any preconceived notions about your life. We talked for another 30 minutes, exchanging business cards, discussing potential meetings to talk more about the software platform. By the end of the conversation, I had Derek's direct phone number and email address, and he'd seemed genuinely interested in continuing our discussion. As I drove home that night, I felt the first stirrings of something other than pain and anger. I felt purpose. Derek Monroe was a good man who deserved better than what Tasha was doing to him. And together, whether he knew it yet or not, we were going to make sure both our cheating spouses understood the true cost of betrayal. 3 days after the networking event, I sent Derek an email about scheduling a meeting to discuss the TechCore software platform. It was professional, brief, and completely believable. He responded within an hour, suggesting coffee the following Tuesday at a cafe near his office. I spent those intervening days gathering more evidence. The private investigator Nicole had recommended was worth every penny. His name was Robert Chin, a former police detective who now specialized in infidelity cases. Within a week, he provided me with a comprehensive file on Brandon and Tasha's affair. They met at the Riverside Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Always the same room, 412, which apparently Tasha booked under a fake name. The affair had been going on for 7 months, not 6 like I'd initially thought. 7 months of lies, of stolen afternoons, of Brandon coming home and kissing me like nothing was wrong. The investigator's report included photos, time-stamped and date-stamped, showing Brandon and Tasha entering and leaving the hotel together. There were credit card receipts from romantic dinners Brandon had claimed were client meetings. Text message records that the investigator had somehow obtained, full of intimate exchanges between my husband and his mistress. Reading through it all made me physically ill, but I forced myself to review every detail. This was evidence, documentation, proof that would hold up in divorce court. And more importantly, proof that I could show Derek when the time was right. Tuesday arrived, and I met Derek at the Riverside Cafe, a bright, modern space with large windows and comfortable seating. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with his laptop open and a coffee in front of him. Simone, he said, standing to greet me. Thanks for meeting me. Can I get you something? Just a latte, thank you, I said, settling into the seat across from him. Derek ordered my coffee and we spent the first 20 minutes discussing the TechCore platform in detail. He was knowledgeable and enthusiastic, clearly proud of the work his company was doing. I asked intelligent questions, took notes, and genuinely considered whether Morrison & Associates might actually benefit from their services. Just because I had an ulterior motive didn't mean the business discussion wasn't legitimate. But as our conversation wound down, I steered us toward more personal topics. How's your week been? I asked. You mentioned things were stressful when we met at the networking event. Derek sighed, running a hand through his hair. Honestly, still stressful. Work is fine, great actually. But home? He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, I said gently. But sometimes it helps to have someone objective to bounce things off of. He studied me for a moment, and I kept my expression open and sympathetic. Finally he spoke. My wife Tasha, she's been distant lately. More than distant actually. She's been working late almost every night, taking calls in other rooms, guarding her phone like it's the nuclear codes. And when I try to talk to her about it, she gets defensive and accuses me of not trusting her. My heart rate picked up, but I kept my voice steady. That must be frustrating. Do you think something's going on? I don't know, Derek admitted. Part of me thinks I'm being paranoid. Real estate is demanding and she's always been ambitious. But another part of me wonders if there's more to it. She's been different for months now. Less interested in spending time together, always on her phone, making excuses not to go out or be intimate. The pain in his voice was genuine, and I felt a surge of anger at Tasha for putting him through this. He was a good man, clearly trying to make sense of behavior that didn't make sense because he couldn't imagine his wife would betray him this completely. Have you considered that she might be having an affair? I asked quietly. Derek's eyes widened slightly. I've thought about it, he admitted. But Tasha and we've been together for 8 years, married for 6. She's always been so committed to our relationship. I can't imagine her doing something like that. I understood that feeling perfectly. I'd felt the same way about Brandon right up until the moment I saw him in that hotel room with another woman. Sometimes people surprise us, I said carefully. Not always in good ways. Derek nodded slowly. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Maybe I am, I said, meeting his eyes. My husband has been working late a lot too. Taking calls in private. Being secretive about his phone. All the classic signs, right? Have you confronted him? Not yet, I said, which was technically true. I'm still gathering information, trying to decide what to do. Part of me doesn't want to believe he'd betray me like that. But the signs are all there. We sat in silence for a moment, two strangers bound by the possibility of shared betrayal. Derek looked tired suddenly, the weight of his suspicions clearly wearing on him. I'm sorry you're going through this, he said. It's a terrible feeling, not being able to trust the person you're supposed to trust most in the world. I'm sorry you're going through it too, I said. Even if we're both wrong, even if there's a perfectly innocent explanation, the doubt alone is damaging. What are you going to do? Derek asked. About your husband? Find out the truth, I said. One way or another. I can't live like this, wondering and suspecting and driving myself crazy. I need to know for sure. Derek nodded. I've been thinking the same thing. Maybe I should hire someone to follow Tasha, get some concrete evidence. But that feels so invasive, so paranoid. Or it feels like protecting yourself, I countered. If she's innocent, you'll find out and can work on whatever's actually causing problems in your marriage. If she's not. I let the sentence hang. If she's not, at least I'll know, Derek finished. At least I won't be living in ignorance. We exchanged phone numbers after that, promising to stay in touch and support each other through what we both suspected would be difficult times ahead. As I walked back to my car, I felt a strange mix of guilt and satisfaction. I was manipulating Derek, guiding him toward the truth in a way that served my purposes. But I was also genuinely helping him, wasn't I? He deserved to know what Tasha was doing. The fact that it also helped my revenge plan didn't make the truth any less important. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek and I met for coffee 3 more times. Each meeting he grew more convinced that Tasha was hiding something. I carefully fed his suspicions without being obvious about it, asking questions that made him think, sharing observations that aligned with his own concerns. She's been going to more and more showings that last for hours, Derek told me during our 4th coffee meeting. And when I ask her about them, she gets vague about the details. Last week, I asked her about a property she claimed to have shown, and she couldn't remember the address. That does seem suspicious, I said. Has she always been forgetful about work details? Never, Derek said firmly. Tasha is meticulous about her properties. She can rattle off square footage, lot sizes, and pricing details without even checking her notes. But lately, when I ask about specific showings, she stumbles. I waited, letting the silence encourage him to continue. I think I'm going to hire an investigator, Derek said finally. I hate that it's come to this, but I need to know. Not knowing is eating me alive. I understand completely, I said. If you need a recommendation, I know someone. A friend of mine used him recently for a different matter, but he's supposed to be very good and very discreet. Derek looked relieved. That would be helpful actually. I wouldn't even know where to start looking for someone like that. I gave him Robert Chen's contact information, the same investigator who documented Brandon and Tasha's affair so thoroughly. Robert was expecting Derek's call. I'd already briefed him on the situation, and he understood what I needed him to do. "Thank you, Simone," Derek said, and the gratitude in his voice made me feel both powerful and guilty. I don't know what I'd do without someone to talk to about this. My friends, they all know Tasha. I can't exactly discuss my suspicions with them without it getting back to her. "That's what I'm here for," I said. "Nobody should have to go through this alone." As we parted ways, Derek squeezed my hand briefly, a gesture of friendship and solidarity. I watched him walk back toward his office building, his shoulders slightly hunched under the weight of suspicion and doubt. In a few days, Robert Chen would provide him with photographic evidence of Tasha's affair. And then Derek Monroe would have to decide what to do with the truth. I was betting he'd want revenge as badly as I did. Robert Chen delivered the evidence to Derek on a Friday afternoon. I knew because Derek called me that evening, his voice shaky and broken in a way that made my chest tighten with sympathy despite my ulterior motives. "Can we meet?" he asked. "I need to talk to someone, and you're the only person who would understand." We met at a different cafe this time, one farther from both our workplaces, in a quiet neighborhood where we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. Derek looked terrible when he arrived. His eyes were red-rimmed, his usual neat appearance disheveled. He'd clearly been crying. "It's true," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Everything I suspected. The investigator you recommended, he got photos. Tasha's been meeting someone at a hotel. Every Tuesday and Thursday for months." I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. "Derek, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't help, but I truly am. The worst part is I'm not even surprised," he said, his voice hollow. "Part of me has known for weeks, maybe longer. I just didn't want to believe it. Didn't want to face it." "Did the investigator identify who she's been meeting?" Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Even though I'd been expecting it, seeing Brandon's face on Derek's phone screen sent a jolt through me. In the photo, Brandon and Tasha were walking into the Riverside Hotel together, his hand on the small of her back in a gesture I recognized because he used to do the same thing to me. "His name is Brandon Harris," Derek said. The investigator looked into him. "He's a marketing director at Stellar Communications. Married. His wife's name is..." He squinted at the screen. "Simone Harris." I let the silence stretch for a beat before speaking. "Derek, there's something I need to tell you." He looked up from his phone, confusion crossing his face as he saw my expression. "My last name isn't just Harris," I said quietly. "It's Simone Harris. I'm Brandon's wife." The shock on Derek's face was complete. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're his wife? You've known this whole time?" "Yes," I said, meeting his eyes steadily. "I found out about the affair 3 weeks ago. That's why I approached you at the networking event. That's why I've been meeting with you, talking with you, encouraging you to investigate." Derek stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Several people at nearby tables looked over. "You've been manipulating me," he said, his voice tight with anger. "Using me for what? Revenge." "Please sit down," I said calmly. "Let me explain." "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for weeks? That everything we've talked about has been a setup?" "Not everything," I said. "Your suspicions about Tasha were real. The affair is real. The pain you're feeling right now is real. I didn't create any of that. All I did was help you discover the truth sooner rather than later." Derek stood there for another moment, anger and confusion warring on his face. Finally he sat back down, but his body language was closed off now, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Why?" he asked. "Why go through all this? Why not just tell me from the beginning?" "Because if I'd approached you as Brandon's wife and told you your wife was having an affair with my husband, you might not have believed me," I said. "You might have thought I was crazy or vindictive or mistaken. But by befriending you first, by letting you discover your own suspicions, by helping you find proof on your own terms, the information is much more credible." Derek processed this, his expression slowly shifting from anger to something more complex. "So this whole thing, our friendship, the coffee meetings, the support, it was all just part of your plan?" "The friendship wasn't fake," I said honestly. "The support wasn't fake. I do understand what you're going through because I'm going through the same thing. Yes, I had strategic reasons for approaching you. But that doesn't mean I haven't genuinely cared about helping you through this." "How did you find out?" Derek asked after a long pause. About Brandon and Tasha? I told him about finding the hotel receipt, about following Brandon to the Riverside Hotel, about standing outside room 412 and hearing my husband's voice mixed with another woman's laughter. I described the photos I'd taken, the evidence I'd gathered, the weeks of maintaining a facade at home while planning my next move. Derek listened without interrupting, and I saw his anger slowly transform into understanding. We were both victims here. Both betrayed by the people we trusted most. The fact that I'd been more proactive about responding to that betrayal didn't make me the villain. "What do you want from me?" Derek asked finally. "Why tell me all this? Why not just let me figure it out on my own?" "Because I think we can help each other," I said. "Separately, we're just two betrayed spouses getting divorced. But together, we can make sure Brandon and Tasha actually face consequences. We can make sure everyone knows what they did. We can make sure they don't just walk away from this and start over like nothing happened." "You want revenge?" Derek said. It wasn't a question. "I want justice," I corrected. "There's a difference. Revenge would be childish and destructive. Justice is making sure actions have consequences. Brandon and Tasha made choices. They chose to betray us, to lie to us, to risk everything we'd built together for stolen afternoons in a hotel room. Don't they deserve to face the full weight of those choices?" Derek was quiet for a long time, staring at the table between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Harder. "What did you have in mind?" I leaned forward. "First, we both file for divorce simultaneously. No warning, no chances for them to prepare or spin the narrative. We serve them the papers at the same time, ideally in a situation where they're together and can't deny what's been going on." "You want to catch them at the hotel," Derek said. "Exactly. Next Tuesday they'll be there at 3 o'clock, just like they have been for 7 months. We show up together, we walk in on them together, and we confront them together. No he said, she said. No gaslighting. Just the undeniable truth laid bare." Derek's jaw tightened. "And after that?" "After that, we proceed with divorces that don't give them a penny more than absolutely legally required. We document everything, we make sure the court knows exactly why these marriages are ending. And we make sure their professional and social circles know too. Not through gossip or dramatics, but through simple, honest communication about what happened." "You want to destroy them," Derek said, but there was something in his voice that wasn't quite accusation. It was almost interest. "I want them to understand that betrayal has costs," I said. "I want Brandon to lose the life he's been taking for granted. I want him to see what happens when you throw away something valuable for something fleeting. And yes, I want Tasha to face the same consequences. They made this choice together. They should face the results together." Derek rubbed his face with both hands. "This is crazy. I should just file for divorce and move on with my life." "You could do that," I agreed. "And maybe that's the healthier choice. But would you feel satisfied? Would you feel like justice had been served? Or would you spend the next year watching Tasha move on with her life, maybe even end up with Brandon permanently, while you're left picking up the pieces alone?" That hit home. I could see it in Derek's eyes. The thought of Tasha and Brandon ending up together, building a life on the wreckage of the marriages they destroyed, was too much to bear. "I need time to think about this," Derek said. "Of course," I said. "Take all the time you need. But Derek, if you decide you want justice, if you decide you want to make sure they actually face consequences, I'll be here. We can do this together or we can do it separately. Either way, I'm moving forward with my plan." Derek stood, gathering his jacket. He paused before leaving, looking down at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You're a lot tougher than you look," he said. "I have to be," I replied. "Falling apart won't change what happened. But making sure they understand what they threw away, that might help me move forward." He nodded once and left. I sat alone at the table for another 20 minutes, drinking cold coffee and wondering if I'd made a mistake by revealing my hand so soon. Derek could warn Tasha. He could derail my entire plan. But something told me he wouldn't. The pain in his eyes, the anger beneath his shock, told me he was considering my offer more seriously than he wanted to admit. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. "Home late tonight. Client emergency." I stared at the message, wondering if it was true or if he was actually at another hotel with Tasha. It didn't matter anymore. In less than a week, if Derek agreed to my plan, Brandon's comfortable life of lies would come crashing down. I typed back a simple response. "Okay. See you later." 2 hours later, Derek called. "I'm in," he said without preamble. "Tell me what I need to do." The next 5 days passed in a blur of careful planning and constant tension. Derek and I met 3 more times to coordinate our strategy, each meeting taking place in locations far from our usual haunts where we wouldn't risk being seen together by anyone who might mention it to Brandon or Tasha. Derek had transformed since agreeing to my plan. The hurt, confused man I'd met at the cafe had been replaced by someone colder, more determined. I recognized that transformation because I'd gone through it myself. Betrayal had a way of hardening people, of burning away the softer parts and leaving only steel behind. I talked to a divorce attorney yesterday, Derek told me during our Monday evening meeting. We were sitting in his car in a grocery store parking lot, going over final details. His name is Patterson, works at Green & Associates downtown. He specializes in cases involving infidelity. Good, I said. I'd already hired my own attorney, a sharp woman named Jennifer Williamson who'd assured me that with the evidence I had, getting a favorable divorce settlement would be straightforward. Did you tell him about tomorrow? Not the details, Derek said. Just that I'd be confronting my wife about her affair and would need papers drawn up quickly. He's having everything ready by noon tomorrow. I checked the time on my phone. 3:15. In exactly 24 hours, Brandon and Tasha would be at the Riverside Hotel, expecting another stolen afternoon together. They had no idea their comfortable arrangement was about to explode. Are you sure you want to do this? I asked Derek. Once we walk through that hotel room door, there's no going back. Your marriage will be over. My marriage is already over, Derek said, his voice flat. It ended the first time Tasha decided to betray me. Tomorrow we're just making it official. I understood that feeling completely. My marriage to Brandon had ended the moment I'd stood in that hotel hallway and watched him kiss another woman. Everything since then had just been playing out the inevitable conclusion. Tasha thinks I'm going to be at a work conference in Seattle tomorrow, Derek continued. I made a big production of packing, complaining about the timing, the whole act. She seemed relieved when I left this morning. Because it meant she could spend the afternoon with Brandon without having to sneak around quite as much, I said bitterly. Exactly. Derek's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I've been going over it in my head all the time she lied. All the excuses and explanations that seemed plausible at the time but were actually just cover for her affair. How did I not see it? Because we trust the people we love, I said. Because we don't want to believe they're capable of betraying us. That's not a weakness, Derek. That's what makes us decent human beings. Decent human beings who got played, Derek said. For now, I agreed. But after tomorrow we're the ones in control. They've been calling the shots for 7 months, deciding when to meet, how to lie, how to maintain their double lives. Tomorrow we take that power back. We went over the plan one more time. Robert Chin, the private investigator, would be stationed in the hotel lobby to confirm when Brandon and Tasha arrived. He'd text both Derek and me, and we'd give them 15 minutes to get settled in room 412. Then Derek and I would enter the hotel separately, meet at the elevators and go up together. Tasha had used her real name when booking the room this time, which meant Derek could legitimately request a key card at the front desk as her husband. The hotel staff wouldn't question it. And once we had access to that room, we'd have undeniable proof of the affair, witnessed by both betrayed spouses simultaneously. What if they don't show? Derek asked, voicing the fear that had been nagging at me all week. They'll show, I said with more confidence than I felt. They've been meeting every Tuesday and Thursday for 7 months. Why would tomorrow be any different? Because maybe the universe isn't quite ready to give us this, Derek said, but there was dark humor in his voice. The universe owes us this, I replied. After what they've put us through, the least it can do is let us catch them red-handed. We parted ways after confirming we'd both be at the Riverside Hotel by 2:45 tomorrow afternoon. As I drove home, my hands were shaking slightly on the steering wheel. Tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow, the careful facade I'd been maintaining for weeks would shatter. Brandon would know that I knew. And whatever happened after that would determine the course of the rest of my life. Brandon was home when I arrived, sitting on the couch watching television with a beer in his hand. He looked so normal, so comfortable in the life he'd been systematically destroying for the past 7 months. Hey babe, he said, smiling as I walked in. How was your day? Fine, I said, hanging up my coat. Busy. We have a new client that's taking up a lot of my time. Well, don't work too hard, Brandon said. You look tired. The concern in his voice would have been touching if it hadn't been completely fake. This was the same man who would be in bed with another woman in less than 24 hours, and he was sitting here pretending to care about my well-being. I'm okay, I said. Just ready for the week to be over. Tomorrow's only Tuesday, Brandon pointed out. Long week ahead. You have no idea, I muttered, but he didn't hear me. He'd already turned his attention back to the television, completely unaware that tomorrow would be the last normal day of his life. I went upstairs, claiming exhaustion, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Part of me wanted to back out, to pretend I didn't know anything, to give Brandon a chance to end the affair on his own and try to save our marriage. But that part was small and growing smaller by the hour. The larger part of me, the part that had been growing stronger since I first discovered the betrayal, wanted justice. Wanted consequences. Wanted Brandon to understand that actions have prices. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I kept running through the plan in my mind, looking for flaws, preparing for contingencies. What if Tasha sensed something was wrong and didn't show up? What if Brandon somehow found out and confronted me before we could confront them? What if Derek changed his mind at the last minute and backed out? But when I finally did sleep, I dreamed of walking into room 412 and finding it empty. Just a made bed and sunlight streaming through the windows and no evidence that anyone had ever been there at all. I woke up at 5 in the morning with my heart pounding, temporarily convinced that my entire revenge plan had been nothing but a fantasy. But it wasn't a fantasy. The evidence was real. The affair was real. And in less than 10 hours, Brandon and Tasha would walk into that hotel room expecting another stolen afternoon, completely unaware that their lives were about to change forever. I got up and went through my morning routine mechanically. Shower, coffee, getting dressed for work. Brandon emerged from the bedroom at 6:30, already dressed in one of his expensive suits, checking his phone with a slight smile on his face. Was Tasha texting him? Making plans for their afternoon rendezvous? Big day today? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Just the usual meetings, Brandon said. Although I might be a little late getting home. We have a client presentation that could run long. A client presentation. That was a new lie. Usually he claimed late meetings or unexpected conference calls. I wondered if he was running out of excuses or if he just didn't care enough to keep his story straight anymore. No problem, I said. I might be late too. Busy day for me as well. Brandon kissed me on the cheek as he left, a gesture so familiar and yet now so foreign. I watched him drive away, knowing it might be the last morning routine we'd ever share. By tonight he'd know that I knew. By tonight our marriage would be irrevocably over. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, but there was no way I could focus on spreadsheets and client files today. Instead, I spent the morning at Nicole's apartment, going over everything one last time. You're sure about this? Nicole asked for probably the 10th time. Once you do this, there's no taking it back. I'm sure, I said. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Okay, Nicole said, squeezing my hand. Then go get your justice. And call me the minute it's over. I want to hear everything. At 2:30, I drove to the Riverside Hotel. My phone buzzed at 2:40, a text from Robert Chin. Both subjects entering hotel now. Proceeding to room 412. My heart started racing. This was it. This was actually happening. I parked and walked into the hotel lobby, my legs feeling slightly unsteady. Derek was already there, standing near the elevators in a green button-down shirt and slacks. He looked pale but determined. Ready? I asked as I approached. No, he said honestly. But let's do this anyway. We approached the front desk together. The young woman behind the counter smiled pleasantly. How can I help you? My wife checked into room 412 about 15 minutes ago, Derek said, his voice steady. But I don't have a key. Can you make me one? The woman checked her computer, confirmed Tasha's name on the reservation, and made Derek a key card without any questions. It was remarkably easy. Within 2 minutes, we were in the elevator, riding up to the 4th floor in tense silence. Whatever happens in there, Derek said as we walked down the hallway, thank you for doing this with me. I don't think I could face it alone. You're not alone, I said. We're in this together. We stood outside room 412, the same door I'd stood outside weeks ago when I first discovered the affair. Through the door I could hear voices. Laughter. The sound of people who believed they were safe, who had no idea their carefully constructed lies were about to collapse. Derek looked at me. I nodded. He took a deep breath and inserted the key card into the lock. The light turned green. The door swung open. And there they were. Brandon and Tasha sprang apart like teenagers caught by their parents. They'd been on the bed, partially clothed, tangled together in a way that left no room for innocent explanations. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the hotel window illuminated everything in harsh, undeniable detail. Derek. Tasha scrambled to pull her blouse closed, her face going from flushed to pale in seconds. What are you, You're supposed to be in Seattle. Simone, Brandon breathed, frozen on the bed with his shirt unbuttoned. This isn't, we were just. Don't, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. Don't insult us both by pretending this is anything other than what it is. Derek walked further into the room and I followed, closing the door behind us. We discussed this moment in detail, how we'd react, what we'd say. But now that we were actually here, confronting the two people who'd betrayed us so completely, all the rehearsed lines fled from my mind. How long? Derek asked Tasha, his voice tight and controlled. How long have you been doing this? Derek, please let me explain, Tasha said, frantically trying to button her blouse with shaking hands. This isn't what you think. It's exactly what I think, Derek said. I have photos, Tasha. 7 months worth of photos of you and him entering this hotel together. Every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. So don't stand there and lie to me anymore. I'm done being lied to. Brandon had recovered enough to stand up from the bed, his face shifting from shock to defensive anger. Simone, have you been following me? Spying on me? Does it matter? I asked. Would you feel better if I discovered your affair through blind luck instead of investigation? Would that somehow make what you've been doing less of a betrayal? We need to talk about this, Brandon said, moving toward me. Alone. This is between us. I stepped back. Nothing is between just us anymore, Brandon. You made sure of that when you started sleeping with someone else's wife. Tasha had finally managed to button her blouse, though it was crooked and missed a button. She looked at Derek with tears starting to form in her eyes. Derek, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Things between us haven't been good for so long, and Brandon understood me in a way that... Stop, Derek said, his voice like ice. Don't you dare try to make this my fault. Don't try to justify what you've done by claiming our marriage was struggling. If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. You should have suggested counseling or separation or anything other than lying to my face for 7 months while you screwed someone else. Derek, please, Tasha tried again, reaching for his arm. He jerked away from her touch. Don't ever touch me again. The devastation on Tasha's face would have been satisfying if the whole situation hadn't been so painful. This was the moment I'd been planning for, working toward, and now that it was here, I felt hollow. Victorious, yes. Justified, certainly. But also empty, because no amount of confrontation could undo the fact that Brandon had chosen this. Had chosen her. Had chosen to destroy what we'd built together. We should go, I said to Derek. We've seen enough. Wait, Brandon said, panic entering his voice. Simone, please, we need to talk. I made a mistake. It was stupid and selfish, but I love you. I never stopped loving you. You love me? I repeated, and bitter laughter escaped before I could stop it. Brandon, if this is what you think love looks like, then I'm glad you've stopped loving me. I can fix this, he insisted, following me toward the door. We can go to counseling. I'll end things with Tasha. I'll do whatever it takes. The only thing I want you to do is sign the divorce papers, I said, reaching into my purse and pulling out the envelope my attorney had prepared. I tossed it onto the bed. You'll be served officially tomorrow, but I wanted you to have these now. Call it a courtesy. Derek pulled out his own envelope and threw it at Tasha. Same goes for you. My attorney will be in touch. You can't be serious, Tasha said, her voice rising with desperation. You're going to throw away our entire marriage over one mistake? One mistake. Derek's voice cracked. You've been lying to me every day for 7 months. You've been sharing a bed with me at night and another man during the day. You've looked me in the eye and made me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong. That's not one mistake, Tasha. That's 7 months of deliberate choices to betray me. We can work through this, Brandon tried again, grabbing my arm. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his face. Let go of me. Something in my voice must have convinced him I was serious because he released me immediately. Simone, please. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You did this. You made this choice every time you lied to me, every time you came to this hotel room, every time you looked at me and pretended everything was fine. This is the consequence of your actions, Brandon. Not mine. But I love you, he said again, and the desperation in his voice would have moved me once. Before I knew what love actually meant. Before I understood that real love doesn't involve hotel rooms and 7 months of lies. You love the life I gave you, I corrected. The clean house, the cooked meals, the comfortable existence where you got to have everything you wanted without any consequences. But that's over now. You don't get to keep me and have her too. Tasha had collapsed onto the hotel room chair, crying into her hands. Derek stood over her, his face hard and closed off in a way I'd never seen before. "I want you out of the house by the time I get home," he told her. "Pack whatever you can carry today and make arrangements for the rest. I'll have my attorney contact you about the division of assets." "Where am I supposed to go?" Tasha asked through her tears. "I don't care," Derek said flatly. "Maybe Brandon can help you. You two seem to have figured out how to arrange hotel rooms. I'm sure you can manage an apartment." Brandon's face went red. "Now wait a minute. This thing with Tasha, it's not serious. We're not going to be together." The room went very still. Tasha's head snapped up, her tear-stained face showing shock and hurt. "What? I mean, we were just..." Brandon stammered, realizing his mistake. "It was just physical. I never intended to leave Simone for you." I watched the realization hit Tasha with a sense of detached satisfaction. She'd been a mistress, yes, but she'd apparently believed it meant something more. Believed that Brandon was planning a future with her, that their stolen afternoons would lead somewhere beyond hotel rooms. "You said you loved me," Tasha said, her voice small. "You said your marriage was over, that you were just waiting for the right time to leave." "I had to say something," Brandon said, then seemed to realize how terrible that sounded. "I mean, I do care about you, but you were lying to her too," I finished for him. Imagine that. A man willing to cheat on his wife is also willing to lie to his mistress. Who could have predicted such behavior? Derek looked at me. "We should go." "Agreed," I said. As we turned toward the door, Brandon made one last desperate attempt. "Simone, wait. Please. I know I've messed up, but we've been together for 8 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" I paused with my hand on the door handle and looked back at him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by his desperation. This was the man I'd built a life with, the man I'd trusted with my heart, my future, my faith. And he treated all of it like it was disposable. "It meant something once," I said. "But you threw it away. That's on you, Brandon. Not me." Derek and I walked out of room 412 together, leaving behind the wreckage of 2 marriages and 2 people who would have to figure out how to live with the consequences of their choices. The hotel hallway seemed brighter than before, cleaner, like stepping out of a dark room into sunlight. We didn't speak until we reached the lobby. Once there, Derek turned to me, and I saw that his eyes were wet with tears he hadn't let fall in front of Tasha. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not making me face that alone. I don't think I could have done it without you." "Same," I said, and found that I meant it. Having Derek there, having someone who understood exactly what this felt like, had made the confrontation bearable in a way facing Brandon alone wouldn't have been. "What happens now?" Derek asked. "Now we move forward," I said. "We file our divorces. We rebuild our lives. We prove that we're stronger than what they did to us." Derek nodded slowly. "Will you keep in touch? I know our friendship was built on this situation, but I'd like to think it's become more than that." "I'd like that too," I said honestly. "We've been through something terrible together. That creates a bond." We exchanged a brief hug, then walked to our separate cars. As I drove away from the Riverside Hotel for what I hoped would be the last time, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pain, yes. Anger, certainly. But also relief. The not knowing had been torture. The pretending had been exhausting. Now, at least, everything was out in the open. The lies had been exposed. The truth had been laid bare. Brandon called me 17 times that evening. I didn't answer. Tasha called Derek 12 times according to the text he sent me. He didn't answer either. We'd said everything that needed to be said in that hotel room. Anything else would just be more lies, more excuses, more attempts to minimize what they'd done. That night, I slept at Nicole's apartment again. She held me while I cried, not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd thought I'd had. The marriage I'd believed in had never really existed. The Brandon I thought I knew had been a fiction. I was mourning something that had never been real, and that somehow made it worse. "You did the right thing," Nicole said firmly. "You stood up for yourself. You refused to accept being treated like that. You should be proud." "I don't feel proud," I admitted. "I feel tired." "That's okay too," Nicole said. "You just went through something traumatic. You're allowed to be tired. But tomorrow you start rebuilding. Tomorrow you start creating the life you actually deserve." She was right. The confrontation was over. The hardest part was done. Now came the work of actually moving forward, of building a new life from the ruins of the old one. And this time I'd be doing it on my own terms. The week following the confrontation was a blur of attorney meetings, paperwork, and carefully managed emotional breakdowns. Brandon tried everything to change my mind. He showed up at my office with flowers. He sent text messages ranging from apologetic to angry to desperate. He even tried to enlist his mother to call me and beg me to reconsider. I blocked his number after the 15th text. I had the locks changed on our house while he was at work. And when he showed up banging on the door at midnight, I called the police and filed a restraining order request. "You're being vindictive," Brandon's attorney argued during our first mediation session. "Freezing him out of the house you jointly own, refusing all attempts at communication, filing for restraining orders. This isn't reasonable behavior." "You know what's not reasonable?" my attorney Jennifer shot back. "Conducting a 7-month affair with another married woman while lying to your spouse daily. My client has shown remarkable restraint considering the circumstances." The mediator, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, held up a hand. "Let's focus on the practical matters. The house, the joint accounts, the division of assets. We're here to negotiate a settlement, not relitigate the affair." But everything came back to the affair. Brandon wanted to keep the house. I refused. Brandon wanted to split our savings equally. I refused. Brandon wanted monthly spousal support because his lifestyle had become dependent on our dual income. I laughed out loud at that one. "My client is entitled to half of everything," Brandon's attorney insisted. "The affair is irrelevant to the financial aspects of the divorce." "Actually, it's very relevant," Jennifer said, pulling out a folder. "Illinois is not a true no-fault state. The court can consider factors like adultery when determining property division. And my client has extensive documentation of Mr. Harris's affair, including hotel receipts charged to joint credit cards. He used marital assets to conduct his affair. That absolutely affects the settlement." We left that first mediation with nothing resolved. Brandon looked haggard as we exited through separate doors. I'd heard from Nicole that he'd been staying with a friend, sleeping on their couch, eating takeout every night. Good. Let him experience a fraction of the disruption he'd caused in my life. Derek texted me regularly with updates on his own divorce proceedings. Tasha had hired an aggressive attorney who was fighting for half of everything, despite the documented affair. She'd moved in with her sister and was, according to Derek, telling everyone who would listen that he'd been an absent, workaholic husband who'd driven her into another man's arms. "I can't believe she's actually trying to make herself the victim," Derek wrote. "Like I somehow forced her to cheat by having a demanding career." "Brandon's doing the same thing," I replied, telling people I was cold and distant, that he felt neglected. Anything to avoid taking responsibility for his own choices. "Want to meet for coffee?" Derek asked. Misery loves company. We met at our usual cafe that afternoon. Derek looked as exhausted as I felt. The past week had clearly taken a toll on him. His usual neat appearance was slightly disheveled, his eyes hollow with lack of sleep. "How are you holding up?" I asked as we settled into our corner table with drinks. "Some days better than others," Derek admitted. "This morning I woke up and forgot for about 30 seconds that everything had changed. Then I remembered and it felt like getting hit by a truck all over again." "I know that feeling," I said. The phantom moments of normalcy were the worst. Reaching for my phone to text Brandon about something funny I'd seen, then remembering. Starting to make his favorite dinner before catching myself. Walking past his side of the bathroom and seeing it empty. "My sister Rachel has been amazing though," Derek continued. "She's been letting me stay with her, listening to me vent, helping me find an apartment. I don't know what I'd do without her support." "Nicole's been the same for me," I said. "Sometimes I think the only reason I'm still functional is because she won't let me fall apart." Derek stirred his coffee absently. "Have you heard from Brandon?" "Not since the restraining order," I said. "His attorney communicates through my attorney now. It's better that way. Every time I heard his voice or saw his name on my phone, I'd either want to scream at him or cry. Neither of those options are productive." "Tasha keeps trying to see me," Derek said. "Shows up at my office, sends letters to Rachel's place, even tried to ambush me at the gym yesterday. She keeps saying we need to talk, that I need to hear her side of things." "Is there a side of things that makes 7 months of cheating acceptable?" I asked. "Apparently she thinks so," Derek said with a bitter smile. "According to the voicemail she left yesterday, the affair was my fault because I worked too much and didn't pay enough attention to her emotional needs." "That's garbage," I said firmly. "People who feel neglected communicate about it. They suggest counseling. They don't sneak around and lie for 7 months." "I keep telling myself that," Derek said. "But part of me wonders if she's right. Was I a bad husband? Did I miss signs that she was unhappy? Could I have prevented this if I'd been more attentive?" I reached across the table and put my hand over his. Derek, stop. This is what they do. They make us question ourselves, doubt our own perceptions, accept blame for their choices. You didn't make Tasha cheat. She chose that all on her own. Derek turned his hand over and squeezed mine. You're right. I know you're right. It's just hard not to second-guess everything when your entire marriage turns out to have been a lie. Trust me, I understand, I said. We sat there for a moment, hands clasped across the table, two people bound by betrayal and the difficult work of healing from it. A woman at a nearby table was watching us with curiosity. I wondered what she thought she was seeing. Two friends? A couple? People having an affair of their own? The irony would be almost funny if it wasn't so painful. I started looking at apartments yesterday, I said, releasing Derek's hand and picking up my coffee. I can't stay with Nicole forever, and I refuse to live in that house with Brandon's ghost in every room. I've been doing the same thing, Derek said. Rachel's been great, but I need my own space. Somewhere that isn't filled with memories of Tasha. Maybe we should coordinate, I suggested. Make sure we don't accidentally end up as neighbors. That might be a bit too much coincidence. Derek laughed, a real laugh that reached his eyes for the first time since the confrontation. Could you imagine? People would definitely think we were having an affair ourselves. Let them think it, I said with a shrug. At least we'd know the truth. Over the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into practical matters. I found a beautiful apartment in a building downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. It cost more than I should probably spend, but I didn't care. I wanted a space that was completely mine, with no memories of Brandon, no rooms where I'd catch myself looking for him. Nicole helped me move my belongings out of the house while Brandon was at work. I took only what was rightfully mine, half the furniture, my clothes, my books, the kitchen items I'd brought into the marriage. Brandon would get the house in the divorce settlement. I didn't want it. Let him rattle around in those empty rooms and remember what he'd thrown away. I also started making changes at work. I'd been passed over for a promotion 6 months ago because I told my boss I needed to prioritize work-life balance for my marriage. Now, with no marriage to balance, I threw myself into my career with renewed focus. I started taking on bigger clients, volunteering for complex projects, staying late to perfect presentations. Are you sure you're not overdoing it? Nicole asked one evening when I came home at 9 p.m. for the third night in a row. Throwing yourself into work isn't the same as healing. Maybe not, I admitted. But it's better than sitting at home crying over what Brandon did. At least this way I'm building something positive. And I was building something. Within a month of the separation, I'd closed 2 major accounts that had been struggling for years. My boss noticed. Her boss noticed. Suddenly, I was being invited to meetings I'd never been included in before, asked for my input on strategic decisions, mentioned as someone to watch for future advancement. You've really come into your own lately, my boss told me during a quarterly review. I don't know what changed, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I almost laughed. What had changed was that I'd stopped making myself smaller to accommodate a man who'd never appreciated it anyway. What had changed was that I'd redirected all the energy I'd been putting into my marriage into building a career that actually valued me. Derek and I continued to meet regularly, updating each other on divorce proceedings and offering support through the difficult moments. His divorce was moving faster than mine because Tasha had finally accepted that their marriage was over and was focusing on getting the best financial settlement possible. She actually suggested we stay friends, Derek told me incredulously during one of our coffee meetings. Said we'd been together too long to let one mistake destroy our relationship completely. One mistake, I repeated. The 7-month mistake. Exactly what I said, Derek confirmed. She got angry when I pointed that out. Said I was being petty and vindictive. We're not being vindictive, I said firmly. We're being realistic. You can't rebuild trust after that level of betrayal. The foundation is too damaged. She doesn't see it that way, Derek said. In her mind, I'm being unforgiving and holding the affair over her head unfairly. Good thing her opinion doesn't matter anymore, I pointed out. Derek smiled. True. My attorney says we should have everything finalized within 6 weeks. Then I never have to deal with her again. And what will you do then? I asked. After the divorce is final? Derek was quiet for a moment, staring into his coffee. Honestly, I have no idea. For the first time in my adult life, I'm completely unattached. No girlfriend, no wife, no obligations to anyone but myself. It's terrifying and exciting at the same time. I feel the same way, I admitted. Part of me is scared of being alone. But another part of me is looking forward to discovering who I am without Brandon's influence. You're going to be amazing, Derek said with certainty. You're already amazing. Strong, smart, capable. Brandon was an idiot for throwing you away. Tasha was an idiot for throwing you away, I countered. You're one of the best people I've met. Derek looked at me intently and something shifted in the air between us. For a moment I thought he might say something more, might acknowledge the connection that had formed between us through shared pain and healing. But then he looked away and the moment passed. We should probably not do this, he said quietly. Do what? Start seeing each other as anything more than friends helping each other through divorces, Derek said. That would be a terrible idea. We're both vulnerable, both raw from betrayal. Any relationship that started now would be built on trauma, not genuine connection. He was right and I knew it. Part of me was disappointed anyway. Derek had become important to me, someone I looked forward to seeing, someone whose opinion mattered. But he was also right that any romantic involvement would be a mistake. We needed to heal separately before we could consider being together in any capacity beyond friendship. You're right, I said. We're friends. Good friends. Let's not complicate that. Agreed, Derek said, though he looked slightly disappointed too. Friends who helped each other survive the worst thing that's ever happened to them. That's a pretty strong foundation for a friendship, I pointed out. The strongest, Derek agreed. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer, my attorney. Court date set for 3 months from now. Prepare for battle. I showed Derek the message. Looks like Brandon decided to fight the settlement after all. Tasha too, Derek said, checking his own phone. Her attorney just filed a motion contesting the prenup. This is going to get ugly. Let it get ugly, I said, feeling that familiar steel settle into my spine. They started this. We're just making sure they face the consequences. Derek raised his coffee cup. To consequences. I clinked my cup against his. To justice. And to the slow, painful, ultimately liberating process of rebuilding ourselves from the wreckage of betrayal. 6 months after the confrontation at the Riverside Hotel, I stood in my new downtown office, looking out at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows that cost a fortune but were worth every penny. The sign on my door read, Simone Harris Consulting, in elegant letters that still made me smile every time I saw them. Starting my own accounting consulting firm had been Nicole's idea. You're too talented to keep making other people rich, she'd said one evening over wine and takeout. Why not make yourself rich instead? The divorce settlement had helped. Brandon had fought hard, but with the documented evidence of his affair and the money he'd spent on hotel rooms and expensive dinners with Tasha, the judge had been sympathetic to my position. I'd walked away with more than half of our joint assets, including a substantial amount from the sale of our house. I'd used that money wisely. 6 months of careful planning, networking, and preparation had resulted in Simone Harris Consulting, a boutique firm specializing in financial strategy for small to medium-sized businesses. I'd already signed 3 clients, with 2 more in serious negotiations. It wasn't making me rich yet, but it was mine in a way nothing had been mine during my marriage to Brandon. My phone rang. Derek's name flashed on the screen. Congratulations on the new office, he said when I answered. I saw the announcement in the business section this morning. Very impressive. Thank you, I said, feeling genuine pleasure at his praise. I still can't quite believe it's real. I keep expecting to wake up and find out I dreamed the whole thing. It's real, Derek assured me. And you earned it. You've worked incredibly hard these past 6 months. He wasn't wrong. While Brandon had been busy trying to convince anyone who would listen that I'd been a terrible wife who'd driven him into another woman's arms, I'd been building something real. Creating a business, establishing a reputation, proving that I was more than just someone's betrayed spouse. How's the move going? I asked. Derek had accepted a position at a tech company in Austin, Texas, a promotion that came with a significant salary increase and a fresh start far from the memories of his failed marriage. Good, Derek said. Complicated but good. I fly out next week to start apartment hunting. My sister Rachel has been helping me sort through what to keep and what to sell. Turns out I don't need as much stuff as I thought I did. That's one benefit of starting over, I said. You get to decide what comes with you and what stays behind. Exactly, Derek agreed. I'm keeping very little that reminds me of Tasha. Most of the furniture, the artwork she picked out, all the stuff that screams, married couple, I'm leaving behind. Good for you, I said. You deserve a completely fresh start. There was a pause and I could hear Derek take a breath before speaking again. I wanted to call before I left because I wanted to tell you something. About us. About this past 6 months. My heart rate picked up slightly. Okay. You saved my life, Derek said simply. Not literally, obviously, but emotionally. I don't think I would have survived Tasha's betrayal without you. Having someone who understood exactly what I was going through, who didn't judge me for being angry or hurt or vindictive, who just let me feel what I needed to feel without trying to rush me through it, that was everything. Derek, I said, my throat tightening with unexpected emotion. You did the same for me. We saved each other. I know, he said. But I wanted to make sure you knew how much it meant. How much you mean? These past 6 months, getting to know you, building this friendship, it's been one of the few good things to come out of this nightmare. What are you saying? I asked carefully. I'm saying that I care about you, Derek said. A lot. More than I probably should given the circumstances. And I think you care about me too. He was right. Somewhere between the shared coffee meetings and the mutual support and the understanding that only came from shared trauma, I developed feelings for Derek that went beyond friendship. Feelings I'd been carefully ignoring because acting on them felt wrong somehow, like we'd be proving Brandon and Tasha right about something. I do care about you, I admitted. But Derek, we agreed. We're both too raw, too recently betrayed. Any relationship now would be a rebound, would be based on pain instead of genuine connection. I know, Derek said. And you're right. That's why I'm not asking for anything now. I'm moving to Austin. You're building your business here. We both need time to heal independently, to figure out who we are outside of our marriages, outside of the trauma. Then why are you telling me this? I asked, confused. Because I wanted you to know that when we're both ready, when we've both had time to heal and grow and become the people we're meant to be, I'd like a chance, Derek said. Not now. But someday. If you're interested. A smile spread across my face despite the tears starting to form in my eyes. I'm interested, I said. Someday. Someday, Derek repeated, and I could hear the smile in his voice too. Until then, friends? The best of friends, I confirmed. And Derek? Thank you. For everything. For helping me through this. For understanding. For making me feel like I wasn't crazy for wanting justice instead of just walking away. Right back at you, Derek said. Now go celebrate your new office. You've earned it. After we hung up, I stood at my office window for a long time, watching the city bustle below. Derek was moving to Austin. I was building a business here. We were both moving forward, separately, healing independently. It was the right thing to do, the smart thing. But part of me wished we could figure out healing together. Someday, I told myself. Someday when we're both whole again, when we're both healed, we'll see if what we felt was real or just trauma bonding. Someday. My phone buzzed with an email notification. A new client inquiry, someone who'd seen the article about my firm and wanted to discuss financial strategy for their expanding restaurant chain. I opened my laptop and started composing a response, pushing thoughts of Derek and some days to the back of my mind. Right now, I had a business to build. The next several months flew by in a blur of client meetings, late nights perfecting financial models, and the steady, satisfying growth of my consulting firm. By month 9, I had 7 clients and was hiring my first employee, a recent college graduate named Jennifer who reminded me of myself 10 years ago, ambitious and hungry to prove herself. Nicole threw me a celebration party at her apartment, inviting people from my old job, some new business connections I'd made, and a few mutual friends who'd stuck by me through the divorce. The living room was full of people drinking wine and congratulating me on my success, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt genuinely happy. Look at you, Nicole said, hugging me tight. CEO of your own firm, thriving, glowing. This is what you deserve. I couldn't have done it without you, I said honestly. You've been my rock through all of this. That's what best friends are for, Nicole said. Although I have to admit, I'm a little proud of myself for suggesting the business thing. That was a stroke of genius. It really was, I agreed, laughing. Someone tapped my shoulder. I turned to find Rachel, Derek's sister, holding a glass of wine and smiling warmly. Simone, congratulations. Derek asked me to give you this. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a card with a simple message. Knew you'd be amazing. So proud of you. D. How is he? I asked. How's Austin treating him? He's good, Rachel said. Really good, actually. The new job is challenging but rewarding. He bought a house last month, something modern with lots of space. And he's been dating. Something twisted in my chest at that last bit of information, though I had no right to feel jealous. Derek and I had agreed to move forward separately. His dating was healthy, was exactly what he should be doing. That's great, I said, meaning it even though it hurt a little. He deserves happiness. So do you, Rachel said pointedly. Have you been dating? Not really, I admitted. I've been too focused on the business. And honestly, I'm not sure I'm ready yet. The idea of trusting someone again, of being vulnerable. I trailed off. Rachel nodded understandingly. Derek said the same thing for months. But he's at a place now where he's ready to open himself up again. He told me that what happened with Tasha doesn't define him anymore. It's just something that happened, not who he is. That's healthy, I said. It is, Rachel agreed. And I think you're getting there too. You've built something amazing here, Simone. You've proven that you're strong and capable and don't need anyone to complete you. That's the foundation you need before you can build a healthy relationship with someone new. She was right. I'd spent the past 9 months proving to myself that I could survive, could thrive without Brandon. I'd built a successful business, created a new life, become a person I was proud of. The woman I'd been a year ago, standing outside hotel room 412 with a shattered heart, felt like a different person entirely. Tell Derek I said thank you for the card, I said to Rachel. And that I'm proud of him too. Tell him yourself, Rachel said, pulling out her phone. He'd love to hear from you. You two were so good for each other during the darkest time. Don't lose that connection just because you're both healing. After the party ended and everyone had gone home, I sat on Nicole's couch and stared at Derek's number in my phone. It had been 3 months since we'd last talked, both of us busy with our new lives, both of us giving each other space to heal. But I missed him. Missed our coffee meetings, missed the easy understanding between us, missed having someone who knew exactly what I'd been through because he'd been through it too. I typed out a text. Thank you for the card. Congratulations on the house and the dating and the moving forward. I'm proud of you too. His response came 20 minutes later. Thanks. How's the firm treating you? Living up to expectations? Exceeding them, I wrote back. Hired my first employee last week. It's surreal being someone's boss. You'll be great at it. You're great at everything you do. We texted back and forth for the next hour, catching up on the past 3 months, sharing stories about clients in new cities and the strange process of rebuilding lives from scratch. It felt natural, easy, right in a way that talking to Brandon had never felt even in our best days. I miss our coffee meetings, Derek wrote. Is that weird? Not weird, I replied. I miss them too. Maybe when I'm back in town for Christmas, Derek wrote. We could meet up? I'd like that, I typed, then hesitated before adding, how's the dating going? There was a longer pause before Derek's response came. It's okay. Nothing serious yet. Mostly just getting back out there, remembering what it's like to talk to someone who doesn't know my baggage. How about you? Anyone special? No, I wrote. Been too focused on the business. And maybe not quite ready yet. You'll know when you are, Derek wrote. Don't rush it. Same to you. Someday, Derek wrote, and I could almost see him smiling as he typed it. Someday, I agreed. 1 year after discovering Brandon's affair, I sat in a conference room signing the final divorce papers. Brandon sat across from me, looking older than I remembered, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. His attorney had advised him to settle rather than continue fighting, and for once he'd taken good advice. This doesn't have to be the end, Brandon said as we waited for the attorneys to finish reviewing documents. We could try again. Start over with everything out in the open. I looked at him, this man I'd once loved enough to marry, and felt nothing but distant pity. Brandon, it ended the first time you lied to me. The first time you chose her over our marriage. This is just paperwork. I made a mistake, he said, not for the first time. One terrible mistake. Don't I deserve a second chance? You made hundreds of mistakes, I corrected. Every lie, every hotel visit, every time you came home and pretended everything was fine. That wasn't one mistake. That was a choice you made over and over for 7 months. I still love you, Brandon said quietly. No, you don't, I said, and I meant it. You love the idea of me. You love having someone cook your meals and clean your house and make your life comfortable. But you don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have been able to betray me like that. Jennifer pushed the final documents across the table. Everything's in order. Just need your signatures on the highlighted lines. I signed without hesitation. Brandon's pen hovered over the paper for a long moment before he finally signed too. Just like that, 8 years of marriage dissolved into legal documentation. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, I told Brandon as we left the conference room. I hope someday you figure out how to be honest with yourself and whoever you're with. Simone, Brandon called as I walked away. I paused but didn't turn around. I really am sorry. For everything. I was an idiot. Yes, I agreed. You were. I walked out of that building feeling lighter than I had in a year. The divorce was final. The last legal tie binding me to Brandon was severed. I was completely, utterly free. Nicole took me out for a celebratory dinner that night at an upscale restaurant downtown. We ordered expensive wine and dessert and toasted to new beginnings. "How does it feel?" Nicole asked. "Being officially single again?" "Strange," I admitted. "But good. Like I've been carrying around a heavy weight and finally got permission to put it down." "You look happy," Nicole observed. "Truly happy, not just pretending to be okay." "I am happy," I realized. "The business is thriving. I have good friends. I have a life I built myself, not one someone else defined for me. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "Have you heard from Derek lately?" Nicole asked, trying to sound casual and failing. "We text occasionally," I said. "He's doing well in Austin. His sister Rachel says he's been dating someone seriously for a few months now." The news had stung when Rachel mentioned it last month, though I'd hidden my reaction. Derek was moving on, building a life without me in it. That was what we'd agreed on, what we both needed. But knowing it intellectually didn't stop the small ache in my chest when I thought about him with someone else. "And how do you feel about that?" Nicole asked gently. "I want him to be happy," I said honestly. "He deserves happiness after what Tasha put him through." "That's very mature of you," Nicole said. "But it's also okay to be sad about it. You cared about him. Still care about him, I think." "Of course I do," I said. "Derek helped me survive the worst time of my life. But we both needed to heal separately. If his healing includes dating someone new, then I'm genuinely happy for him." Nicole gave me a look that suggested she didn't quite believe me, but she didn't push. Instead, she changed the subject to her own dating life, entertaining me with stories about terrible first dates and incompatible personality matches. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm over the next few months. My business continued to grow. I hired 2 more employees and moved into a larger office space. I started getting invited to speak at local business conferences, sharing my expertise on financial strategy and small business management. I also started dating, tentatively at first, then with more confidence as I realized I was ready. Nothing serious, just dinners and movies and getting to know people without the weight of past betrayal crushing every interaction. It felt good to laugh with someone over drinks, to share stories without constantly wondering if they were lying, to simply enjoy someone's company without the constant hypervigilance that comes from being betrayed. "You're glowing," one of my clients commented during a quarterly review meeting. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Success looks good on you." I was succeeding. In business, in life, in proving to myself that Brandon's betrayal didn't define me. I'd taken something terrible and used it as fuel to build something better. The woman I'd become was stronger, more confident, more self-assured than the woman who'd stood outside that hotel room a year ago. Derek called one evening, his voice excited in a way I hadn't heard before. "I have news," he said. "Really good news." "Tell me," I said, settling onto my couch with a glass of wine. "I got promoted to Vice President of Engineering," Derek said. "It's a huge step up, significant salary increase, and it means I'll be managing a team of 50 engineers. It's everything I've been working toward." "Derek, that's amazing," I said, genuinely thrilled for him. "Congratulations. You absolutely deserve it." "Thanks," Derek said. "It's been a good year. The promotion, the new relationship, getting over what Tasha did. I feel like I'm finally past it, you know? Like I'm not defined by being someone's betrayed ex-husband anymore." "I know exactly what you mean," I said. "It's freeing, isn't it? Realizing that what they did to us doesn't determine who we are." "Completely," Derek agreed. "Although I have to say, none of this would have been possible without you. The way you approached everything, the strength you showed, the example you set for how to survive betrayal with dignity instead of bitterness. You taught me how to do this." "We taught each other," I said. "We survived it together even when we were apart." There was a pause. "Simone, there's something else I wanted to tell you. About the relationship I've been in." My stomach tightened. "You don't have to explain anything to me, Derek." "I know," he said. "But I want to. Her name is Jennifer, she's a project manager at my company and she's wonderful. Kind, intelligent, funny. We've been together for 4 months now and it's going really well." "I'm happy for you," I said, and most of me meant it. A small part of me, the part that remembered Derek saying, "someday," felt a twinge of loss. But mostly, I was genuinely pleased that he'd found someone who made him happy. "The thing is," Derek continued, "being with her has made me realize something. What we had, you and me, that connection during the worst time of our lives, It was real and important and meaningful. But it was born from trauma. And I think if we tried to build something romantic on that foundation, it would have collapsed. I've thought the same thing, I admitted. We needed to heal separately. Needed to prove we could be whole on our own before we could be part of something together. Exactly, Derek said, relief evident in his voice. I'm glad you understand. I was worried you'd think I was just making excuses or giving up on this someday we talked about. Maybe, someday, was never meant to be a specific plan, I said thoughtfully. Maybe it was just a promise to ourselves that we'd be open to happiness when we found it, wherever that happiness came from. I like that interpretation, Derek said. So we're okay? Our friendship is intact. Always, I assured him. You'll always be one of the most important people in my life, Derek. What we went through together, the way we helped each other survive, that created a bond that doesn't just disappear because we're both moving forward with other people. We talked for another hour, catching up on everything happening in our separate lives. When we finally hung up, I felt at peace. Derek was happy. I was happy. We'd both survived our betrayals and built lives we were proud of. The fact that those lives didn't include each other romantically didn't diminish what we'd meant to each other during the healing process. I picked up my phone and opened my dating app, scrolling through messages. There was one from a guy named Thomas, a teacher who'd suggested meeting for coffee this weekend. His profile showed a warm smile and eyes that crinkled at the corners. His messages had been thoughtful and funny, showing genuine interest without being pushy. I typed out a response accepting his coffee invitation. It was time to be fully open to new possibilities, to stop holding part of myself back for a someday that had transformed into something different than I'd imagined. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run along the lakefront. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The air was crisp and clean, and I felt energized in a way I hadn't felt in years. My phone rang as I was stretching. Nicole's name flashed on the screen. Turn on Channel 7 News, she said without preamble. Right now. I pulled up the news app on my phone and my breath caught. There, on the screen, was a photo of Tasha being escorted out of her real estate office by police officers. The headline read, "Local real estate agent arrested for fraud." I called Nicole back. What happened? Apparently she's been running some kind of scheme, forging documents and stealing deposits from clients, Nicole said. The investigation's been going on for months. They just arrested her this morning. I sat down on a bench, processing this information. Tasha had been arrested. Her life, which had already been upended by the affair and subsequent divorce, was now completely destroyed. Part of me felt satisfaction. This was karma, consequences, justice for someone who'd caused so much pain. But another part of me just felt sad. Sad that people made such terrible choices. Sad that betrayal and lies seemed to compound into worse and worse behavior. Derek needs to know, I said. Already called him, Nicole said. He's the one who told me to call you. Wanted to make sure you heard about it from a friend rather than stumbling across it online. How did he sound? I asked. Shocked, Nicole said. But also kind of relieved, I think. Like this confirms that leaving her was the right choice. People who lie about one thing usually lie about everything. She wasn't wrong. Brandon had been the same way. Once I'd started really looking at our marriage with clear eyes, I'd found lies everywhere. Small ones, big ones, constant little deceptions that had made up the fabric of our relationship. What about Brandon? I asked. Have you heard anything about him? Nothing dramatic, Nicole said. He's still at his job, though apparently he's not doing well. Lost some major clients recently. Living in a small apartment alone. Word is he tried to reconnect with Tasha after both divorces were final, but she wanted nothing to do with him. The irony was almost funny. Brandon had thrown away his marriage for an affair that hadn't even survived the revelation. He'd lost everything for someone who'd never actually cared about him beyond stolen afternoons and the thrill of secrecy. I can't bring myself to feel sorry for him, I said. You shouldn't, Nicole replied firmly. He made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. As I sat on that bench watching the sunrise over the lake, I thought about choices and consequences. Brandon had chosen to betray me, and he'd lost a loyal wife and comfortable life. Tasha had chosen to betray Derek and apparently her real estate clients, and she'd lost everything. Derek and I had chosen to face our betrayals head-on, to refuse to accept being treated poorly, and we'd both built better lives as a result. Choices mattered. Actions had consequences. And the past year had proven that sometimes the best revenge wasn't revenge at all. It was simply living well, building something meaningful, and refusing to let other people's betrayals define you. 2 years after walking out of hotel room 412, I stood on a stage at the Grand Ballroom Hotel, preparing to deliver the keynote address at the Women in Business Leadership Conference. The room was filled with hundreds of professional women, all looking to me for inspiration and guidance. "Thank you for that wonderful introduction," I said into the microphone, my voice steady and confident. 2 years ago, I was a mid-level accountant at someone else's firm. Today, I own a consulting business with 12 employees and 23 clients across 6 states. This transformation didn't happen overnight, and it certainly didn't happen easily. I paused, looking out at the audience. So many faces, all of them reflecting different stages of their own journeys. Some looked confident and accomplished. Others looked uncertain, still figuring things out. I recognized both because I'd been both. The catalyst for my business wasn't a brilliant idea or a sudden stroke of luck, I continued. It was betrayal. Personal, devastating betrayal that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. I'm not going to share all the details because that's not what you're here for. But I will tell you that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the push you need to become who you're meant to be. The audience was silent, attentive. I'd practiced this speech for weeks, but standing here actually delivering it felt different. More real. More important. When my marriage ended, I had a choice. I could spend my energy being angry, seeking revenge, making the person who hurt me understand my pain. Or I could take that energy and invest it in myself. In building something that no one could take away from me. In proving that my worth wasn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. I clicked to the next slide, showing a graph of my firm's growth over the past 2 years. This is what happened when I chose to focus on myself rather than on the person who hurt me. This is what success looks like when you refuse to let betrayal define you. After the speech, I was swarmed by women wanting to ask questions, share their own stories, request business cards. One woman in particular stood out, a younger version of myself with the same determined look in her eyes. "Your speech really resonated with me," she said. "I'm going through a divorce right now. My husband cheated, and I've been so focused on making him pay for what he did that I haven't thought about what comes after. What I want to build for myself. The best revenge is living well," I told her. I know that sounds like a cliché, but it's true. Whatever energy you put into hurting him is energy you're not putting into helping yourself. Build something so amazing that 5 years from now, when he sees what you've become, he realizes exactly what he threw away. She thanked me with tears in her eyes and walked away clutching my business card. I hoped she'd contact me. I hoped she'd build something beautiful from the ashes of her betrayal. I hoped she'd discover the same strength I'd found. Nicole found me after the crowd thinned. "That was incredible," she said, hugging me tight. "I'm so proud of you. Look at everything you've built." "I couldn't have done it without you," I said honestly. "You've been there through everything." "That's what best friends do," Nicole said. "Now come on, there's someone I want you to meet." She led me to a quiet corner where a tall man with warm brown eyes and an easy smile was waiting. "Simone, this is my colleague Marcus from the law firm." "Marcus, this is Simone, the friend I've been telling you about." We shook hands and I felt a small spark of interest. Marcus had kind eyes and an open, genuine smile. "Nicole's told me a lot about you," he said. "Congratulations on your success. What you've built is really impressive." "Thank you," I said. "What kind of law do you practice?" We fell into easy conversation discussing his work in corporate law and my consulting business. There was no awkwardness, no forced small talk. Just genuine interest and comfortable rapport. When he asked if I'd like to get dinner sometime, I said yes without hesitation. Later that evening, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine, reflecting on how far I'd come. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Saw your conference speech posted online. You killed it. So proud of you." "Thank you," I typed back. "How are things in Austin?" "Really good. Jennifer and I got engaged last month." I stared at the message for a moment, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Happy for Derek, genuinely happy. But also a little sad for this someday that would never come. Then I remembered what I'd told him months ago, that someday was really just a promise to be open to happiness wherever it came from. "Congratulations," I wrote back. "She's a lucky woman. Send me photos of the ring." Derek sent several pictures. Jennifer was beautiful, with dark curly hair and a bright smile. The engagement ring was elegant and suited her perfectly. They looked happy together in the photos, really happy in the way that comes from building something genuine rather than trying to heal together. "When's the wedding?" I asked. "Next spring. You're invited, obviously. Wouldn't be the same without you there." "I'll be there," I promised. My phone rang. It was Rachel, Derek's sister. "I heard Derek told you about the engagement," she said. "How are you doing with it?" "Honestly? I'm okay," I said and realized I meant it. Derek and I, what we had was important, but it was built on shared trauma. We helped each other survive, and that created a bond. But we were never meant to build a life together. We were meant to help each other become whole enough to build lives with other people. "That's very wise," Rachel said. "And very mature. Not everyone could see it that way. 2 years ago I couldn't have," I admitted. "But I've learned a lot about myself since then. About what I need, what I want, what I deserve. Derek deserves someone who loves him for who he is now, not who he was during his worst moment. I deserve the same thing." "Speaking of which," Rachel said with a smile in her voice, "Derek mentioned you met someone at the conference today?" "Nicole introduced me to a colleague," I confirmed. "We're having dinner next week. It's probably nothing, but he seems nice." "Nice is a good start," Rachel said. "Better than the alternative." After we hung up, I walked to my window and looked out at the city lights. 2 years ago, I'd been standing in a hotel hallway with my world crumbling around me. Today, I owned a thriving business, had spoken at a major conference, and was looking forward to a dinner date with someone who might or might not become important in my life. The journey from there to here had been painful and difficult and required more strength than I'd known I possessed. But I'd made it. Not just survived, but thrived. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. Curious, I opened the message. "Hi Simone. This is Tasha. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to apologize for everything. I'm in a program now working on myself, and part of that is making amends. I know I can never undo the damage I caused, but I'm truly sorry." I stared at the message for a long time. Tasha, reaching out after 2 years of silence. Tasha, who'd lost everything, her marriage, her career, her freedom. Part of me wanted to delete the message without responding. What did I owe her? Nothing. She'd made her choices, faced her consequences. I'd moved on. But another part of me remembered the woman I'd been 2 years ago, standing in that hotel hallway. That woman had wanted revenge, had wanted Tasha to suffer, had wanted everyone who'd hurt her to pay. The woman I was now understood that holding on to that anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. I typed out a response. "I appreciate you reaching out. I hope you find the healing you're looking for. Take care of yourself." It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly. But it was release. Letting go of the last bit of bitterness that tied me to that awful chapter of my life. Tasha's redemption or lack thereof wasn't my concern anymore. I had my own life to live. The next week I had dinner with Marcus. He was everything Nicole had said, kind, funny, successful in his own right. We talked about work and hobbies and travel plans. He didn't ask about my past, didn't pry into why I'd been single for the past year. He just enjoyed my company and made me laugh and suggested getting together again soon. "I'd like that," I said honestly. 3 months later, Marcus and I were officially dating. It was different from my relationship with Brandon had been. Lighter somehow, less weighted with expectations and roles. Marcus saw me as I was now, the successful business owner, the confident woman who knew her worth. He didn't know the woman who'd stood outside that hotel room with a shattered heart, and I was glad. That woman was part of my history, but she wasn't who I was anymore. Spring arrived, and with it, Derek's wedding invitation. I RSVP'd yes and bought a beautiful green dress for the occasion. Nicole came with me as my +1, and we flew to Austin together for the weekend celebration. The wedding was beautiful. Derek looked happy, genuinely happy in a way I'd never seen before. Jennifer was lovely, greeting guests warmly and clearly devoted to her new husband. When they exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other, I felt tears prick my eyes. Not from sadness but from joy. Derek had found what he deserved. So had I. At the reception, Derek found me during a quiet moment. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling me into a hug. "It means everything having you here." "I wouldn't have missed it," I said honestly. "You deserve this happiness, Derek. All of it." "So do you," he said, stepping back to look at me. "Nicole told me about Marcus. She says you're really happy." "I am," I confirmed. "He's wonderful. Different from Brandon in every way that matters." "Good," Derek said firmly. "You deserve someone who treats you the way you should be treated. Someone who sees how amazing you are and never takes that for granted." "You found that with Jennifer," I said. "I'm so happy for you." "We both made it," Derek said, his voice slightly awed. 2 years ago we were standing in that hotel room confronting the people who betrayed us. Today we're both genuinely happy. We survived, Simone. We more than survived. We won. He was right. We had won. Not by destroying Brandon and Tasha, though they'd certainly faced consequences for their actions. We'd won by refusing to let their betrayals define us. By building lives we were proud of. By becoming people we actually liked. To survival, I said, raising my champagne glass. To victory, Derek countered, clinking his glass against mine. As the reception continued around us, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The discovery, the pain, the anger, the careful planning of revenge that had transformed into something better. Instead of destroying the people who hurt us, Derek and I had built ourselves into something stronger. Brandon and Tasha had faced consequences, yes. But those consequences were natural results of their choices, not revenge we'd orchestrated. Brandon was alone, struggling in his career, living in a small apartment and wondering how he'd thrown away something good. Tasha had served time for fraud and was trying to rebuild a life with a criminal record. Their choices had led them exactly where they deserved to be. Meanwhile, Derek and I had both flourished. We'd taken the worst thing that had ever happened to us and used it as fuel to become better versions of ourselves. That was the real victory. Not making them suffer, but making ourselves strong. 6 months after Derek's wedding, I stood in my own beautiful apartment, getting ready for a date with Marcus. We'd been together almost a year now and things were getting serious. He talked about meeting my parents, about taking a vacation together, about future plans that included both of us. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She was confident, successful, happy. She wore a bright blue dress that made her feel powerful. She had a thriving business, good friends, a relationship with someone who valued her. She was everything the woman outside hotel room 412 had needed to become. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus: "Can't wait to see you tonight. I have something important to ask you." My heart skipped. Something important. That could mean a lot of things. Some of them exciting, some of them terrifying. But unlike 2 years ago, I wasn't afraid. Whatever came next, I could handle it. I'd proven that to myself over and over. The doorbell rang. Marcus was early, standing in my hallway with flowers and a nervous smile. "You look beautiful," he said, handing me the bouquet. "Thank you," I said, taking the flowers and inhaling their sweet scent. "Come in while I put these in water." As I arranged the flowers in a vase, Marcus stood in my living room, looking at the framed photo on my shelf. It was from Derek's wedding, Nicole and me in our fancy dresses, smiling at the camera with genuine happiness. "You look really happy in this," Marcus observed. I said. "I am." Marcus turned to face me. "Simone, I know we've only been together for a year, but I've never felt this way about anyone. You're smart, successful, kind, funny. You challenge me to be better while accepting me exactly as I am. And I know you've been hurt before, I know you have reasons to be cautious, but I need you to know that I see you. The real you. And I love everything I see." My breath caught. He'd said love. After months of dating, of getting to know each other, of building something real, he'd finally said it. "I love you too," I said, and meant it completely. Marcus smiled, relief and joy mixing on his face. "Good. Because I was hoping you'd agree to take a trip with me next month. My family has a house in Colorado, and I'd really like you to meet them." Meeting the family. That was a big step, a serious step. The kind of step that led to more serious steps. And unlike 2 years ago, when the thought of serious commitment would have terrified me, I found myself excited by the prospect. "I'd love to meet your family," I said. That night, lying in bed after Marcus had gone home, I thought about revenge and justice and moving forward. I thought about Brandon, alone in his small apartment, facing the consequences of his choices. I thought about Tasha, trying to rebuild after destroying everything. I thought about Derek, happily married and thriving in Austin. And I thought about myself, successful and loved and genuinely happy. The best revenge had never been about making them suffer. It had been about refusing to let their betrayal stop me from building something beautiful. It had been about proving that my worth wasn't determined by Brandon's inability to see it. It had been about becoming someone I was proud to be. 2 years ago I'd wanted justice. Today I had something better. I had peace. I had success. I had love. I had a life that was completely mine, built on my own terms, filled with people who valued me. That was victory. That was the sweetest revenge of all. Not destroying them, but building myself into something they could never touch, never diminish, never take away. I picked up my phone and opened my notes app, typing out a message I'd been composing mentally for weeks. To my younger self, standing outside that hotel room, I know it feels like the end of the world. I know you think you'll never recover from this betrayal. But I'm here to tell you that you will not only recover, you'll flourish. The pain you're feeling right now will transform into strength. The trust that was shattered will teach you to trust yourself. The love that was betrayed will make room for real love, the kind that doesn't involve lies in hotel rooms and 7 months of deception. You're going to build something amazing. You're going to become someone you're proud of. You're going to prove that your worth was never determined by his inability to see it. Hold on. It gets so much better. I saved the note and turned off my phone. Tomorrow I had a business meeting with a potential client, a dinner date with Marcus, and a coffee meeting with a young woman who'd contacted me after hearing my conference speech. Tomorrow was full of possibilities, of opportunities, of the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. 2 years ago, Brandon had broken my heart. Today, I barely thought about him except as a cautionary tale, a chapter in my story that had taught me valuable lessons about strength and resilience and self-worth. I'd survived. I'd thrived. I'd won. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.